So today I'd like to talk about sounds to create music with. So using samples, using loops, and in particularly using Splice. Should you get into that or not? Let's talk about that. Hey everyone, my name is Percy Jules. Welcome to Supercy and welcome to this series called Studio 101. In this series, I'm talking about some basic principles about music production. So if this is something that interests you, then stick around, and you might also want to consider subscribing to the channel. Now, to create music, you need some sounds, right? Now, you could produce sounds by just buying some instruments like a guitar, a bass guitar, a drum kit. You could buy a drum kit or a piano, record those sounds into your DAW and create a song like that. Well, that's kind of the conventional way of doing it. But many of us, including myself, we are creating music in the box, or at least in my case, primarily in the box, which means that we're not using external instruments, or almost not. We are using virtual instruments or plug-in instruments, or we're using samples. So I've gotten to a point where, well, probably all of us get to every once in a while, where I'm in need of some new sounds, and primarily some drum sounds. So I thought, okay, so what can I do? Should I buy another drum plugin? I already have a few, and they're not always very cheap. So I thought, you know what, let me try something else. Let me give this Splice a try. So what I did was this morning I just signed up for a 14-day trial, I believe it is, and I'm gonna just try it out. And for those of you that don't know what Splice is, by the way, this is not at all a sponsored video. I'm just describing what's been going on with me. So Splice is a community, Splice is a platform rather, that allows you to download sounds that you can use in your production. You know, and Splice is a little bit more than that. So there is Splice Studio. Splice Studio is kind of an online DAW, you might say. So you can record some songs or at least some ideas online. There is Splice Community, so there's a huge community you can connect to in many ways. There is Splice Sounds, which I've been talking about just now. So you can download tons and tons of sounds that you can use in your own productions. There is plugins, you can rent plugins, and there is a blog, you know, that will give you some information. Now, for me personally, or at least at this moment for me personally, and this is probably true for most people, not sure about that, but I would guess it is, it's primarily about the sounds. So, yeah, that's why I signed up to Splice. Now, the reason I've been always very hesitant of signing up to Splice is because of this. In the past, I've always been very much against sampling, or at least sampling as in taking an already existing song, sampling a part of that song, and using that as the basis for your new song. To me, that was always like, well, that's not how music production is supposed to be. I mean, that's like stealing someone else's idea, just adding some sounds to it yourself and selling it off as a new song. You know, just like taking an old car, just throwing some new wheels and another color of paint on it, and ta-da, this is my new car. That's not how it's supposed to be, is it? That's how I used to think. Nowadays, I have a much more nuanced view on this. And there are some amazing producers that, yes, they will sample a part of an already existing song, they will chop it up and they will do some real magic to it, and they will create some awesome new things. You know, and I have a lot of admiration for some of those guys. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not making you less of a producer if you do that. It's just another way of producing. It's another way of creating something new. I've come to see that. However, for myself, for the way I like to work, it still feels very uncomfortable doing that. So I'm not going to do that for myself. But that's just me. I mean, no one else should feel like that. No one else needs to feel like that. That's my problem. Probably I have a huge ego when it comes to this. So I need to be responsible for every little thing that goes on in my song. You know, and that's probably a little bit radical and maybe a little bit stupid also, I don't know, but that's just how I feel. So I'm not saying that I will never ever do it, but it really feels uncomfortable at this moment. I might use a drum loop every once in a while, but especially if it contains something melodic, probably I'm not gonna touch it. Doesn't feel comfortable. Now, I always thought that Splice was primarily aimed at those kind of samples. So that's why I was always very hesitant to sign up to Splice. Now I realize that Splice also has a lot of one-shots. So a lot of single kick drum sounds, a lot of single snare drum sounds, hi-hats, and so on and so on. So that's why I still decided to sign up for a trial period. Now, one of the potential advantages of using Splice over buying a new drum plugin or a sample pack is that, yes, I could buy a new drum plugin which has, I don't know, about 3,000 sounds, but you're only using 200 of them. Sounds familiar? Well, it's a very common thing. Now with Splice you can search for and only buy those sounds that you really need. So that makes it a very efficient and a much more efficient way of buying sounds. So that's a huge advantage over using a new plugin or a sample pack. Now keep in mind that I still have to check if it really fits my my needs. I still have to check if I can actually find the sounds that I need, and also if it fits my workflow, because I already noticed that it requires a little bit a different way of working, and I have to check if that fits my needs. Now, should you use samples and loops and Splice in particular? Well, when it comes to samples, one-shots, yes, of course. I mean, you do need some sounds, don't you? So yes, absolutely. Should you use loops, and especially those melodic loops? Well, for me personally, probably no. But for you, I mean, of course, it's totally up to you. It might also depend on the genre that you're working in, because in some genres it's much more common to use these kinds of loops than in others. But of course, again, it's totally up to you and to what degree you are comfortable using other people's ideas in your own songs. So it's totally up to you. Now, Splice, yes, I'm pretty optimistic about it. You know, I think this might be something that might really benefit me, but not sure about it yet. I'm still testing it. It might also benefit you, or it might benefit you maybe more just by buying another plugin or a sample pack. Something to figure out. Anyway, I just wanted you guys to be aware that this is out there, for those of you that weren't aware of it. So go check it out. Let me know how that turns out. For those of you that already have experience with Splice, I'm very curious, so let me know, is it worth it for you? What are the main benefits for you? Are there also some disadvantages of using Splice? I'm very curious. Let me know, leave a comment. Yeah, and that's actually it for today. So if you want to see more videos like this, then again, consider subscribing. For now, I just want to thank you for watching, and I will talk to you very soon.